match between these two was epic. Let's see if Fabi can get an epic comeback started.
The sweater is off. Fabiano means business. It's no more Spanish torture. It's the Sicilian defense instead. And wow, this is really harking back to 2018, Robert. Flashbacks of the opening debate, consistently discussing this exact opening in that World Championship match. And okay, a trade of bishop for knight right now. Magnus Carlsen playing the moves quickly. This is, I mean, so many memories. That was one of the tensest World Championship matches I've ever seen. And we're arguing that this opening again, it's at the forefront of both players' mind.
But a4 there, now Magnus paused. So in the first game we were talking about the Archangel, that was really Fabiano Caruana's main weapon. Here this is both of their wheelhouses, because 2018, their games when Fabi was white headed into this line, but it's Magnus who's really, he's taking his time at these stages. You saw a flank pawn move for Fabiano, the knight jump behind it, that knight's going to reroute into the center, and perhaps Magnus is saying, this idea is unfamiliar to me, I haven't studied it either recently or ever, and Fabiano perhaps outsmarting his opponent.
The knight developing on the edge is when Magnus takes a pause. Perhaps not the most topical, most popular move in this position. You do see the knight jumping towards the center of the board, or the d-pawn moving forward, opening up the bishop. How much of a surprise is this for Magnus, knight to a3?
It definitely is a surprise. It's forced him to pause for the first time in this game, but it's not the scariest surprise. Yes, white's knight might relocate towards the center to a really nice square, but there's no concrete threats. There's no kind of tactics, no calculation to be done yet. Magnus, I think he's pausing because he just wants to figure out how to set up the black pieces. Firstly, to fight against white's knight, coming into c4 next move, but also just maybe coming to terms, comparing with the ideas that he actually does know, that he's more familiar with. And we soon see him bring his bishop out. This is a clear reaction to white's plan. The white knight, at least temporarily, was prevented from using c4, but Fabiano replies quickly. As far as I know, pawn to a4, this whole plan with white was advocated by AlphaZero and all these neural network engines. So modern chess played and mirroring this 2018 World Championship that we've been discussing.
And another pawn move by Magnus Carlsen here, which to me is interesting because he supports the e5 pawn, but also vacates a square, a potential square for his knight to land on, where it can get to the edge of the board from h6 and to f7. Are those the kind of opening setups that Magnus is aiming for? Bring your knight to f7 and a potential kingside castle.
Absolutely, and the pawn on e5 is now extra well defended, and if you put your knight on f6 a turn ago, that pawn was a bit loose. So look at Fabiano, he brings his own knight towards the center, and that bishop on e6 that Magnus put there, it's his bishop's advantage. He's the only one with a light square bishop. He can take this knight, doubling Fabiano's pawns. We'll have a wall of pawns on the c
anchored by that pawn, and we'll see it drop back. Black's pawn's just weak. He needs to move quickly though. Magnus Carlsen, no time.
But how much of a psychological moment is this? Well, I was going to say, does he come back with the knight? But Fabi is not repeating this position. He knows that he's close to this one. Brings the rook to defend that knight on d8. No checks on c6. Black stops it. Is it time to jump in with the rook to the central square now?
It absolutely is. He should have done it before, but he's given a second chance. Bring your rook forward. Your knight can always escape to that b7 square. Might still be a good move here, but with the rook either joining on d5 or d8, I think that Magnus' forces are overwhelmed, and Fabi, I mean, he's spending quite a lot of time here. He's getting himself into that time trouble that he needs to avoid.
Now that's the only thing that can save Magnus Carlsen now. The clock, as we saw in the previous game, and Fabiano does bring his rook in. Still no threat, but the realization that Black has barely any moves will make him more confident right now. Black's knight is stuck. If it ever moves, the white knight comes into c6 with a check. Black's king maybe moves. Okay, he checks with the rook, but this is only helping the white king come around. The white king is actually going to march up the board via the h-file. This infiltration, white's king is going to step up, and in. And Magnus's defenses are crumbling. He tries counterplay with his rook, but this allows the white knight free.
And then
break out.
a7 pawn, so that one is going to fall. If that white rook goes to the final rank, kicks that knight on out of there. a7 drops, that pawn that was thrust all the way up to a6. It was early on where he went a4, it went to a5, it has not stopped moving. The pressure continues, and I think it's about to be winning material for him, but he takes the e-pawn instead.
I'm not such a fan of this, but he still has the same idea in mind. That being said, pawns are starting to disappear, and if everything disappears, Black will be able to sacrifice a knight maybe for White's remaining pawns later, but now he's removing the defender. Black's knight kicked away, and the a-pawn drops. Magnus Carlsen in big trouble. White's a-pawn is 2 squares away. It's going to promote.
That is a big pawn and desperation there by Magnus. He's just trying to create some chances with checks. White still has to be careful. That knight jumping around, there are checks on the board. Fabi needs to get his king to safety, and then the a-pawn wins the game.
I was surprised he moved his king up, but it goes back around. Knight back to b5. The pawn is unstoppable. As long as he can bring his knight back, push a7, the rook actually covers the promoting square. I think Magnus might even just resign here.
Yeah, you look at him and you get the feeling he's about to give up. Magnus Carlsen. And that's it. Handshakes. Fabiano Caruana levels the score with a win against the world number 1. He was winning in game 1. Did not finish the job, but he gets it done in game 2.
He has the utmost belief in himself. He just out-Magnus Carlsen. He beat him in a technical endgame. It looked like there shouldn't be much hope to win, and Fabiano Caruana got the job done. He walks out of the playing hall